All right, y'all, here we are with episode 2 of the 2022 Owens Recovery Science Memorial Day podcast. On this episode, Zac Dunkle, our instructor, interviews a friend and colleague and fellow Marine, Tom Schmidt. They cover a lot of ground on this podcast, from just the burden of war, the rush of war, to those that are lost. And there's some funny parts, there's some sad parts, and I really want to say personally a special thank you to Tom for taking the time and being willing to share, because I think this is a pretty powerful episode in the end. So big thanks to Tom, and big thanks to General Walrath as well for sharing his thoughts on episode 1. So I won't delay any longer. If you would please stick around after the podcast for the playing of taps, and that will finish out our Memorial Day special episodes. This is the Owens Recovery Science Podcast.
Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. This is our second year we're doing this Memorial Day podcast to talk about some of the sacrifices that have been made. Specifically, I would say the sacrifices, we talked about last year, and then we're going to talk about this year, have been in the modern era with Iraq and Afghanistan. And last year it was pretty much Kyle and I talking about, some of the sacrifices guys have made that I personally knew and I served with. And this year, what I wanted to do was bring on a buddy of mine, someone that I actually served with, a guy by the name of Tom Schmidt. So, Tom, you want to say hello?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
And so, what we'll do is, just kind of give a brief introduction to you, Tom, and then you can feel free to elaborate on that as much as you would like. And so, the thing with Tom and I, we actually grew up in Pennsylvania. He grew up about just a little bit hour north of where I grew up. Had no idea who each other was, though, prior to going to the Marine Corps. And I would say that's one of the great things about the military and the Marine Corps specifically is, you get intermixed with all walks of life, so to speak, and then they throw you together and you're forced to work with one another. And so Tom and I both enlisted right before 9/11, and then we go to boot camp that following summer, and from there we went on to some of our initial training, which was infantry training, and then ultimately from there we go to what's called the reconnaissance training platoon, or the reconnaissance indoctrination platoon. And that's just basically a group that prepares you to go into the amphibious reconnaissance school, and then ultimately into reconnaissance within the Marine Corps. For those who aren't familiar, reconnaissance is kind of the special operations unit of the Marine Corps. That unit was the feeder program, so to speak, into MARSOC. Isn't that correct, Tom?
Yeah, we engulfed first and second force to create MARSOC, and we also took a unit called FMTU, the Foreign Military Training Unit, and that's what initially stood up MARSOC as we know it now.
Yeah, and so basically, the gist of Tom and I. So you went to the amphibious reconnaissance school pretty much, I believe it was the class before mine. And then I went, and once you came back, you went to Okinawa, Japan, correct?
Yep. I came back to my platoon, and I was the low man on the totem pole, and somebody was going to Oki, and I'd messed up a land nav course that like a little bit before that. So I was easily cuttable as the boot, and what a blessing in disguise. I loved Okinawa. It was really great being stationed there. It changed my life.
Yeah. The thing they say about Oki in the Marine Corps is you basically do two things. You either drink or go to the gym. Is that pretty much your experience?
Well, we were in Lieutenant Colonel Bristol's platoon or battalion, so we went to the field. You got an order on Monday, you inserted Monday night, you extracted Thursday night and cleaned gear on Friday, and you were off for the weekend. That was our weekly routine for months before we got the Iraq mission.
Yeah. So now when you went to Iraq, you basically relieved us when we were over there. So basically my battalion, so 2nd Battalion, which is based out of Camp Lejeune down North Carolina, we went to Fallujah in September of 2004, and then you battalion came over in April, end of March, beginning of April of 2005, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so basically from there, I had made the decision. I was done. I was getting out of the Marine Corps, kind of moving on and going to try to do something else. And then you basically re-enlisted and continued to re-enlist and stayed in, right?
Yeah, I just retired 2 years ago. I took Terra, so I retired at 17 years instead of 20. But yeah, it was a long journey from thinking of all the way back then.
Yeah, it's crazy. And one of the things, that I go back to is you think about things and it just seems like yesterday that happened, whether it was a certain event, graduation, or the deployment, what have you. So going back to when you guys deployed to Iraq in the spring of 2005, that basically was when MARSOC was being stood up. Det 1 stood up out in California, and then they stood up MARSOC in Camp Lejeune, what I believe is right around 2006, correct?
I know that we closed down the colors and started 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion. We weren't allowed to be called Raiders yet because that wasn't approved, but we were 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion in 2007, and then that's when 2nd Force stopped being a thing. But MARSOC, the command, had already stood up before 2nd Force had stood down.
Yeah. So when did you end up? So you were deployed in Iraq in 2005, and then basically what happened from that deployment until you ended up going over to MARSOC?
Yeah, so I made the decision to re-enlist when I was in Iraq with 3rd Recon Battalion, and you get to choose your orders, or you get to recommend your top 3 suggestions. As a 0321, there's 3 duty stations, so that makes it pretty simple. And so I chose to go to 2nd Force, and so that's where I went. Whenever I got back, I left like after Christmas. I went to 2nd Force, and I was stood up in 4th Platoon, and then we were getting into our workup, and then it just one day somebody came in and said, "Hey, Rumsfeld said we're starting this new thing called MARSOC," and we were all like, "Well, what does that mean?" And basically meant we weren't going on the MEU, and we were starting a whole new workup with grunts. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Crazy, and everything happened from there. And that was the initial Fox Company. I was in the first Fox Company that Major Galvin just released his book about. We got ambushed, and then it was just bad from there because we were the only Marine unit in Afghanistan at the time. It was controlled by the Army, and there was some conflicting things that happened. That book's really great and highlights all of those issues that we had. But then from that Fox Company, I rolled into the 2nd Fox Company at 2nd, now Raider Battalion. We changed the name, and I went out with 8211 was our task force number. And that was probably the most catastrophic deployment that I ever had. The most effects on the battlefield for sure, but the most effects on me as well. So that was that. And then when I left there, I took a little break because my wife was kind of tired of me deploying so much. So I went to the schoolhouse as an instructor at the Marine Raider Training Center at Gifford Hall. So we worked there, and then I went to 3rd Raider Battalion, and that's where I retired out of 2 years ago. And I ran the training cell as a contractor for a little bit there at 3rd. And now I teach marksmanship to the Coast Guard and do like side hustles with MARSOC still.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to kind of go back to is what you said about your wife, because I think that's one of the things that can kind of get lost. And, you know, the people that recognize the military makes sacrifices, you know, I think one of the things that gets lost with all that is the sacrifices that gets lost at home, with families, whether it's just a wife or it's wife and kids. It's extremely hard on families. And I mean, you take a group like, you know, you were in what I was in, or just the regular infantry, in the height of Iraq. You know, those recon battalions were doing 7-month pumps or 7-month deployments basically every 14 months. And so, and it wasn't just the deployments, right? I mean, the way it works for us was you would do your deployment, you would come back, and you immediately rolled right into a school phase. And so that school phase, you could be gone for months at a time, you know, for military school. And then once you're done with that school phase, you start to work up again. It's a pretty brutal schedule.
Yeah. So my wife and I got together whenever we had gone to high school together, and or anything like that in high school. And then when I went back on leave, when I left 3rd Recon Battalion, was headed to 2nd Force, is when I ran into her, and that's where we started. So that Fox Company workup was our honeymoon phase, and man, was it a test. I mean, so I have 2 stepkids, and then I have 2 of my own, and I've never seen a birth. I've never seen a childbirth, because I was either deployed or training for everything. When I sit where I am now, it's hard for me to fathom like what I have and why I have it, and it's all because of my wife. Like, what? Yeah. I mean, who cares what I've done in the military on a day-to-day basis? I know that people care, and when they say thank you for your service, I know they mean it. I see it. But what would I have if I didn't have my kids, my wife, and my house, and you know what? You know.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy. I mean, it's the wife at, you know, for us, you know, it's the wife. I mean, we were in an all male unit, and dude, it's the wife who holds it together, who holds everything together. I couldn't even imagine, you know, being married and then missing a birth. Like, how does that go over?
I mean, my daughter Amelia was born during the Fox Company firefight that we got ambushed in.
Yeah.
And my son Hunter was born while I was under canopy during a jump package, because he was about a month premature.
Yeah. It's brutally tough, you know, and I think, you know, a lot of credit, and deserving credit deserves to go to them, because truly, you know, it almost seems selfish, I think, sometimes, because, you know, here we are, we love what we do. That's what we want to do. And we just expect people to willingly make that sacrifice just so we can do what we want to do. And, you know, a lot of credit goes to them.
Well, 100%. Without my wife, I don't know where I would be mentally right now, because when you're in, you wear the uniform, you feel it like every single day, like what you're doing and why you're doing it. But when you become an old retired guy, I mean, all you have is the memories. So
That's
man,
right.
it would be rough if I didn't have the family, you know?
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the deployment. So when you said it kind of, you know, it had the most effects on you. Tell us a little bit about it.
So it was really, really hot and heavy in Afghanistan at the time, and we were doing a lot of really good work. We had gotten into the special activities realm, which means that we were getting smarter about how we were conducting warfare. You know, like one of the things I remember really, really vividly is Mark Libo, my operations chief, talking to us. And so we had been tasked to do a slash and burn down south of all the poppy fields, right?
Yeah.
And he sat us down and he was like, we can't do this. And I remember thinking, like, why, Mark? Like, it's poppy. Like, of course we can do this. He's like, but you don't understand. Like, the farmer that's growing the poppy isn't a heroin addict, you know? Like, he has nothing to do with that. He is being forced to grow this poppy. When we burn his field down, he doesn't get paid. He doesn't get paid. He doesn't feed his children. They starve. Like, this is reality. So then, you know, it was just long story short, it was the first time that I ever realized about the second and third order effects on the battlefield. So that was really eye opening. So doing things the way that we were doing them was not the right way the first couple of deployments. And then we got really smart about the way we were doing it. So we were getting a lot more work, but that meant that we were seeing a lot more gunfights, and you run out of luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I was just telling someone last week, use a little sidetrack story here, but with what's going on in the Ukraine right now, and you got all these, or not all, but you have a lot of former military guys that are going over there and joining the fight, but from all around the world, and there's something about being shot at and being in combat that gives this adrenaline rush, and it just drives it. And eventually, you're going to run out of luck. It's a matter of time. Your time will be up, and it's just a matter of when your time is up, what actually causes your time to be up. Is it, do you get shot? Or are you in an IED? That point in time, does the vehicle get blown up, and then what happens to you from there? But it's just like you said, man, you're just rolling the dice each and every time.
And I'll be honest, I got addicted to the rush. I got addicted to the adrenaline, man. I really did, like being on that breach point, like ready to ride that breach in, and knowing that you're going to take rounds in this house. Like it's going to go on, like it's going to happen. You got pop shots on the way up there. Like you're going to encounter a dude in a 10 by 10 space, and you are going to shoot at each other. Like that's a kind of rush that you can't replicate. And the only way that I've found to replicate it is actually instructing. And that's why I love it. Before I like demo something in front of the students, or before I speak in front of the students for the first time, I get that like super scared feeling. You know what I mean? But and it replicates it, and that's why I love instructing.
I think within that community, man, it is truly an alpha community. You from a physical context to the intellectual context of what's required, it is the best of the best. And you literally you're going to a house, and let's be honest, it's not like, the infantry is just going through clearing buildings. No, they're sending these operators to HVTs, or high value targets. And with those high value targets come increased threats as well. And it's just like you said, you're rolling up to the house, they have security details out.
Yeah. And you know this, like you've been briefed on this, that he has 6 PSD, that he's armed, that all this.
Yep. So, and so you're going to make contact before you even get to the house. And then once you're there, a gunfight is so unique. It is truly man versus man, and who is the best at what they do, who's the fastest, and who's the most accurate. But yeah, man. So kind of tell us a little bit about like some of the guys in the team.
So I've on teams and stuff like that, but the one that sticks with me the most is 8211, Task Force 8211, and it was the first Raider battalion. So like we were MARSOC before that, but now we were with the Raider battalion, and it just came with a stigma and everything else. Same as the recon community had its own, and that's where we all came from at the time. We were all 0321s. We didn't even have an MOS to ourselves at the time, and so it's like this hodgepodge group of guys that were doing something new, but something that was the same at the same time. You were doing new warfare with new equipment, new intel means, new everything, but still it's gladiator warfare. I mean, it's you versus man. And it was crazy. And so that was the largest team I was ever in. The recon teams are only 6 guys, but and your platoon isn't as tight knit as your team is. It's hard to explain unless you've been there. But so when you're in your MSOT, or your Marine Special Operations team, it's really, really tight, and you have your element inside there. But you do everything together, and you learn each other's names. This isn't the grunts, and I'm not speaking ill of the grunts by any means, but you're not deploying with strangers.
Yeah.
you know his parents' name. Like you know his kid's name, you know his dog's name, you know where he lives, like, you know everything about every individual. There's no anonymity to it. There's no, oh, this kill number got hit last night. It's first names, So just a different context of what I was used to in the Marine Corps to then what it became. And it was amazing and horrible at the same time. So Fox Company 8211, and our team chief was Eden Pearl. And that guy was he was a legend in our community, and a lot of people know him as an 0321. So the one thing that I will say about Eden, and it brings me to a little sidetrack story, is people like to say jack of all trades, master of none. But not a lot of people have heard the whole saying. And it's a jack of all trades, master of none always beats the master of one. Like, and that was Eden. Like he personified everything that you could want to be in a MARSOC Marine, a Raider, a Recon Marine, anything. You could go to him about anything, be it a weapon, anything with a trigger, a fuse. Like he just knew everything. He was like an encyclopedia for warfare, and it was amazing just being a part of that and being able to download some of that knowledge from him.
Yeah, it was. I didn't know him when I was in, but when you look into him and what people say about him, he is the warrior's warrior. He is the guy that I think it was you who put on Facebook. Maybe it was a year or so ago, that basically, if you wanted his respect, you earned it in battle. That's where you earned this man's respect. And so, yeah,
he wasn't like I am. I'm loud and boisterous and stuff like that. He was so calm all the time. Like I don't remember seeing him spun up ever. Like ever. When he got hit, he was blown out of the vehicle and he was burned from head to toe, but he was still conscious, and he was busting the guy's balls that was carrying him out because Jimmy was fat. Jimmy Starr was fat, and Eden was on his back getting carried off. And he was like, "Jimmy, you fat fuck, you need to get in the gym." This is Eden Pearl, like burnt from head to toe.
I'd tell you that is one of the great things that I think, that I take away from the Marine Corps. Whenever someone asks me, like, they're like, "Do you miss it?" Dude, you miss the ball busting of the Marine Corps. It is a brotherhood, just like you mentioned, right? It is a brotherhood like no other. It's just, it's crazy how I always, think about, and I say that, in the civilian world, people are like, if you have a goal that you want to accomplish something, like everybody's all supportive about it. But in the Marine Corps, no, they take odds and they make bets that you're going to, they're making bets that you're going to fail. And then they're making bets on top of that of when you're going to fail, how fast it's going to be. So, I mean, it's crazy. There's just kind of sidetrack from here. There's a guy that both you and I know, Chase, just a kind of this story with him. He when we were in Iraq, he decided he was going to quit dipping. He was going to quit chewing, and that's just not an environment that's going to be successful.
No, that just means you're going to bum chew off of everybody.
That's right. So we were in a hide site one night, and it was like 2-3 in the morning. We were set up because what was going on was the insurgents were putting IEDs along this main thoroughfare, and I was like, we got into this hide site, built a hide site, and I started sniffing, and I'm like, dude, like I smell Copenhagen. And he goes, "No, you don't." I said, no, dude, I smell Copenhagen. And he goes, no, you don't. I said, "Dude, you got to dip in, don't you?" He goes, no, I ain't got to dip in. I said, "Dude, you got to dip in." And like, sure enough, he's like, "All right, yeah, I got to dip in." And I said, "All right, dude, you lost the bet." But I was like, whatever you got to do to stay awake, man, you do it. But yeah. So back with Eden. So tell us a little bit about kind of that event, like leading up to.
So like I met Eden, and I was in the original Fox Company, and he was an SOTG instructor. And even then, he was larger than life. Like, he was the dude that, like, he was the end all be all for marksmanship and CQB, you know?
Yeah. So SOTG is, it stood for the Special Operations Training Group. And just to kind of spin everyone up, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, here, that is basically who ran the coursework, and they were the instructors that instructed the recon battalions and then force recon as they were doing their workups for a deployment.
Yep. Yeah. So they still exist in a different capacity. I guess they're not allowed to call themselves special operations anymore because MARSOC stood up, but so I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it's called now, but yeah. So they were in charge of all of our training, and like your company checked into them, and when you left them, you were ready for war. You know.
Yeah.
So Eden was, I think, the lead CQB instructor, but I could be wrong on that. But he was out there, and it was just like he was larger than life. So I was ecstatic when he came to Fox Company to be my team chief on the next go around, and now we broke down into, it was a different capacity. We like reorganized ourselves within the companies a little bit differently and tried to mimic kind of the structure that SF uses on how to do their irregular warfare and how to structure ourselves within the team. So there's a lot of growing pains with it and stuff, but we had, once again, we had Eden Pearl, you know, so it was just that we were the jump team. So that's how it all started. He was the jump master, so he got put in 8211, and we started our workup from there. The first thing that we would have done was the shooting package and everything else, and then it was just Eden ran everything, and Mark Libbo was our ops chief. So Mark was like a shadow governor, kind of like he locked on ranges and training areas and stuff like that, but Eden always ran the training,
Yeah.
And I don't know. He was like that. I don't know if dad's right, but like big brother for sure, So the night that we got hit with them, we weren't very deep into that deployment. We were only like 3 months into that deployment, and we had gotten some really good intel on guys that were working really close to our FOB, like where we were stationed, our forward operating base.
Yep.
In Herat, Afghanistan. So we were in Herat, and we were hitting a town called Siawashan. It was just to the north of there. It was maybe 1,500 to 2K, like something like that. It was short, But the first night, our sister team, who was doing a raid at the same time, something happened with a vehicle or something. Anyway, everything got rolled to the right. Everything got pushed to the next time it got dark, So that was like that anticipation, because it got canked and now it's back on again, so you're getting ready, you go out, and the raid went phenomenal. We nabbed dudes, we got a bunch of ordnance and stuff like that. And we reconsolidated on the vehicles. And when we were leaving, we were lined up, and I remember I was turned around trying to make sure all the vehicles were up, because so in front of me was an RG-33, and for those of you that don't know, it doesn't have like a person sitting in the turret. It has a remote control gun system. So it doesn't have like really good situational awareness of what's going on. So he's going real slow until the convoy's up, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm turned around looking, and there's an A&A vehicle behind me, Afghan National Army. So it was like a Ford Ranger. It was right behind me. And then Eden's vehicle was behind that. And as he passed under a street light, it exploded, and it went about 10 feet in the air, and it was engulfed in flames. With the post blast, I guess they said that it was covered in aluminum powder. They had bags of aluminum powder on it, and that made it like a massive fireball.
Yeah, that was one of the strategies in Iraq that the insurgency really started to do. Because about this time was you started to get like some MRADs kind of become a little bit more popular, and they started getting pushed overseas. And the MRAD is just nothing more than an extremely up-armored vehicle. A lot of what we were using at the time was just simply Humvees. And then, like you said, with those Humvees, even if there was armor to them, you had the turret. and the gunner was exposed in that turret. And so the IEDs, kind of from an explosive standpoint, started to, maybe you could say, had a little bit less of an effect just because of the armor of the vehicle. So what they wanted to do is kind of induce a more catastrophic event. And they started doing things that would basically increase a fireball. And yeah, that became pretty serious. So when you guys got hit, then the vehicle just kind of explodes and flies in the air, and then you got this huge.
It's like 10 feet in the air, and it's already in a ball of flame. So
yeah,
I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I just thought they were all dead. Like there's no way anybody survived that.
Right.
So we started getting ambushed at the same time, and I'm returning fire with my 50 cal, and then they start telling my vehicle to back up. So obviously there's casualties. According to the plan, my vehicle and the vehicle in front of me were the casualty evacuation Vic. So we started backing up, and we were in a GMV. All of our trucks were GMVs. I don't know what that stands for, but it's a Humvee that has an open turret and an open back, so you could sit in the back of it.
Yep.
So there were 5 people in Eden's vehicle. There was Eden, our Terp named Ali, Mark Libo, John Stans, and Nick Roush. Nick Roush was an Army PsyOps guy. I always call him a kid because, we were all staff NCOs with multiple combat deployments, and he wasn't. But he wasn't a kid. So Nick was the driver, and Ali was in the back passenger side behind the driver, and or back driver's side. So when the vehicle landed, it landed on that side and pinned them in. So they died. But everybody else was thrown from the vehicle, Mark, Eden, and John. But the problem with it is that was the minigun truck, and that truck hadn't fired that night. So 9,000 minigun rounds cooked off in the back of that thing. So that's 9,762, or for the civilians out there, 308 rounds cooked off in the back of that truck. And it's just raining brass on us as we're trying to pull the guys out.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, you're good. You're good. Take your time. Yeah.
So the vehicle was pinned on that side, and we wanted to get Nick and them out. So the dog handler that we had actually stuck a 50 cal barrel under the vehicle, and we tipped it over, and they got Nick out, and they put him in a body bag, and he was in one of the trucks, and just started packaging up the rest of the casualties, because the C-130 that we had overhead was telling us that there were 117 people moving toward us. And we said 17, and they said negative 100, over 100 people. And then they started shooting terrain denial fires to give us a little bit of time. So we're packing everybody up, and Eden's busting balls, and Mark Libo is just screaming. He's just standing up, walking back and forth, spitting all of his teeth out on the ground and screaming, and like he's mad. He's like really, really angry, John Stans is really, really incoherent. He had a really bad brain injury. So I picked up John to put in my truck. He was going to go on the passenger side.
Just to give people a little kind of background on Stans. If there's any Gold Rush fans out there, John Stans is on Gold Rush. And he's pretty crazy. He's an extremely hilarious guy. I mean, you would agree, right?
Oh my God. I don't want to call him a clown because it's not the right word, but he is the morale booster of your team. Like 100%. There is no way you are in a bad mood if John is in a good mood. That's not possible.
I remember being in RIP with him, and we would be outside, and RIP was nothing more than a thrash session. I mean, you just you every single day was physical thrashings. I
don't remember one class. I don't remember one class.
Yeah, it's probably changed now, but like back then, you didn't really learn anything. It was just a matter of what could you physically endure.
No. Do you remember Corneliuson's speech to us when we first showed up? It was the only time that the person that received me at a battalion didn't lie to me. So he said to us, I am not here to teach you how to be a recon Marine. There's a school for that. I am here to teach you how to hump epic amounts of weight over biblical distances. And I was like, oh my God.
It's crazy. And so Stans, I'll never forget this. We were outside, we were about ready to go on a run, and he goes, is this going to be a boots, no utes run? And so utes is like your cami bottoms. So like just boots and no cami bottoms. And another day he's like, is this going to be a socks and cocks run? And like all this stuff. I mean, dude, and he would say this stuff out loud to the instructors. And, there's like a certain amount of bearing that people have in the military, but these like in RIP, it was just a matter of like, oh, you want to make jokes? Then that's just going to make it worse for everybody else. So, yeah.
So when he sang that song at the Christmas party to the one like really sadistic sergeant that fucking hated all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Hilarious. So that is Stans. And so anyone, if you're a Gold Rush fan, he's on there, and I think he's coming back the next season that they record. But so either way, so you have basically this IED crash or this IED incident. You have one guy down already.
So like my vehicle backs up and the walls blocked my 50 cal, so I was useless in the turret. So I hopped out to try to help casualties and like try to get some of the so there was a rocket and stuff like that attached to the turret, and now it's on fire. So we're like throwing all that shit out of the fire so it doesn't go off next to us. And meanwhile, we're getting rained on by brass, and that was pretty terrible. So I grabbed John to put him in the vehicle, and I have him in like a bridle carry, like have him in my arms. And I can't get the Humvee door open wide enough because it's got that strap,
Yeah.
And John Stans doesn't swear. This is very, very odd for our group of individuals. He doesn't swear. I don't know how, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
So I break the strap, and that like jars him. He like shakes real bad, and he goes, "Ah, fuck." And I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, because I've looked at John and I was like, you just swore. And for some reason, that was the most important thing in my life right then.
Yeah.
Like telling John that he just swore, and I put him in there, and then I went and got Jason Roberts, who he only had one leg. So we put him in the back of the back of my vehicle, and he rode in the back there. And then the other guys got put into the back of the RG-33. It's like a V-bottom up armored vehicle that we had run out first in case there were pressure plate IEDs, because that was their typical way of setting them off. This was not that. This was a wired IED.
Yeah, man. So one of the things that I always remember from being in Iraq was the insurgents would never kind of directly fight us openly. They would always initiate, or they would always attack us whenever they thought they had the upper hand or an advantage. And they would use these IEDs a lot of times to initiate an ambush or try to overrun us from that standpoint.
Yeah, my time in Iraq, it was when we were getting IED'd, there was no follow-on ambush. We were just getting IED'd, and they were happy with the effects that they were getting with that. The Afghanis would actually use that as a kickoff for an ambush,
Yeah.
I never got IED'd in Afghanistan that wasn't followed by small arms fire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, the tactics, as the duration of the conflicts continue, how the tactics evolve on both sides. But they definitely, try to maximize the effect. So you were saying that basically AC-130 said you guys had about 117 folks coming your way.
Yeah. So the vehicle is still obviously on fire, and it's melting. It's like there's a stream of aluminum like running down the road,
Yeah.
So we load up the casualties, and we can't get Ali, our Terp, out of the vehicle. He's an American, but he's our Terp, and we can't get him out of the truck. The truck is just too hot, and there's all those minigun rounds cooking off. So they just launch our two vehicles, the RG and my vehicle, a high-back Humvee, and we run back to drop the casualties off, Well, they had about 2K of ambush set up for us on the way out, and I was getting pop shots the whole time. And the initial IED blast Z'd out all of our radios, the Blue Force tracker kind of stuff, like anything with a route and anything with like imagery on it and stuff. It was Z'd out. It was gone. The data was gone. So we're coming out to steel with Sean, and we don't know which way to go. We hit a Y in the road, and we picked left. And if we would have picked right, I wouldn't be having this podcast right now.
Yeah. Did you guys have any air assets on station, whether it be ISR or someone guiding you from the air, and besides the AC-130?
So the 130, they like every sensor was tasked with the forces moving on our guys that were still back there trying to get Ali out of the vehicle and consolidate everything. So I'm not even sure if they pushed an asset to us for that exfil.
Yeah.
I know that they, like the guys that were on the ground, they had that 130 overhead, and our JTAC 50, man, he was awesome. He was a prior fixed wing guy, and but he saved our lives that night.
Yeah. So what, as the events unfold, what kind of goes on from there?
All right. So we have all the casualties loaded up in the 2 Vics, and we're pushing back to Herat, to the row 1 or row 2 facility. And that means like the level of trauma center,
Yeah.
So this is our first trauma center that we can get them to. And we're trying to get them back as fast as possible, because burns only get worse with time. And that's what everybody's really, really focused on, because Eden Way is starting to close up, and everything's just going bad, and it's going bad fast. So we're literally getting shot at from every rooftop on the way out. And it was getting really taxing. And my turret stripped out, like the handle on the turret literally stripped out, the gears. And I was spinning the turret from side to side, like shooting the 50 cal, and I tore my oblique coming in the gate. And so I was like trying to help offload the guys and stuff. And they had, stretchers out there, and Jason was in the back of the vehicle, like kneeling up on his good leg, and he just had a stump hanging there. And I asked for a stretcher, and they were like, he can walk. And I opened the door, and they saw that he didn't have a leg, and they were like, oh shit, no, he can't.
Yeah.
So we got everybody offloaded, and this was the bad part. Our boys were still in contact, so we were headed back. So I'm literally like, I'm dumping 30 weight in the 50 cal, like speed reloading some slap ammo, man. Like I'm getting ready to go do God's work again. And it's going to be really bad, because they're really sure we're coming now.
Yeah.
So we were coming up Route 1, and the most glorious sight I ever seen was that initial truck pulling out onto the route in front of me. I was like, oh, thank God I don't got to go back in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like when you just get hit after hit after hit, and it's just a matter of, dude, let's just let the night just end. Let's just get out of here, and then recock, regroup, and then maybe go back in. But yeah, man, it wears on you, and you just get fatigued. You're like, can we just be done with this?
Yeah, the worst part of that one is it wasn't over, because Ali was left.
Right.
And so we went back, we consolidated back on our FOB now, our forward operating base, which was not Herat proper. We were down the road a little bit. And we watched ISR, the drone feed all day of them pulling his body out and urinating on him. And they hung a sign around his neck, and they were, tearing shit out of our vehicles and trying to steal whatever they could and stuff like that. But man, watching him get messed with like that, that'll stick with you. Like that.
It's pretty hard. Yeah, I can imagine, man. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. And the only one we lost that night was Nick and Ali. And Eden succumbed to his wounds later, is what I'll call it. But
yeah,
it was years. It was
right. So he ended up coming back so he, from Afghanistan, he then gets stabilized. They extract him out. And he actually comes back to the States. and goes to BAMC, or the Brooke Army Medical Center, and then the Institute of Surgical Research and whatnot down there in San Antonio, or ISR, which is like the big burn center in Texas. And that's what I always tell people, if you ever, have known someone in the military, and they come back from overseas and you're like, hey, they're going to the burn center, that is the burn center. And so date wise, Tom, this was 2009, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2009. And then basically, he kind of, I don't want to say recovers, but he gets discharged out of Brooke Army Medical Center. And it's, I believe 6 years later is when he actually succumbed to his wounds, correct? Like 2015 is when he actually died.
Yeah. I was on another deployment. I was in Germany at the time.
Yeah. It's pretty tough. A lot of times, guys with injuries and whatnot, they may not necessarily die in country or at the time of the incident, but they ultimately die there. And due to the injuries that were sustained from that.
Yeah, man. Eden was something special, man. So like, I don't know why, but we were lured into this false sense of confidence that he was going to be just fine. I mean, the only thing that we had seen was them intubate him. And I remember seeing that with my EOD tech and like, breaking down a little bit, but that was the only, like, I don't know. It was very weird because burns they're tricky, man. Like, they don't look that bad at first.
Right.
And so he was busting Jimmy's balls and everything else. By the time we got him back, his airway was closing up. So they intubated him. And that's when we knew, like, oh my God, it's really bad. And then it was a few days later. It might have been even longer, but I mean, who knows the timeline. But the first thing that we got told about Eden wasn't that he was getting better. It's that they had to take both of his legs and his left arm. And man, we still had 4 months of deployment left.
Yeah.
So we got a combat replacement, and we kept pushing the fight, man.
Yeah. That's the thing that I think is really hard. For the guys in the rest of the team, or the rest of the platoon, or the rest of the group, is, in the moment, you don't have time to mourn that. And I bet Eden would tell you the exact same thing, man. You got to push on. You got to continue on with the mission. Mission comes first, and that was the mantra. And so when these guys go down, you don't have time to think about it. You can ask, like, hey, how's Eden doing, or how's so-and-so doing, whatever. And you just get a brief update, but then you just continue on with the mission. It's very different than, I think, the way, things are on the civilian side of things, where there's a grieving process, there's a mourning process. But when you're in a combat zone, when you get hit with an IED, when that happens, you literally are just, the next day you pick right back up and you're back in the fight. And it's like you said, you got to go out and recover the terp, or, the other individuals who, maybe you couldn't get out of the vehicle and whatnot. It's really tough. And I think ultimately, it's not just tough in the moment, but then it's tough when you come back and now you're dealing with that. And, it's honestly, I think, kind of, what makes Memorial Day, it really is special as it is. And I think for me specifically, and I think a lot of veterans feel this way, especially those who lost somebody, it's a very unique holiday, in the sense of we're supposed to remember and lift these people up, or lift these guys up as heroes, people who literally sacrifice their life for the freedoms and the things that we enjoy. But at the same time, there's a grieving process. And because we never were able to grieve at the moment, we have a lot of these emotions kind of held in. It's a pretty tough balance.
I really I felt like inhuman when my mom passed away, because my level of grievance, just I wasn't capable of grieving for my mom the way that my sisters were, or my dad was. It's like 70-year-olds on their second pacemaker die. Like that's what happens. Like I was just like so surreal about it, and they were like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah, it's really kind of crazy. Kind of that grieving and how you're like, yeah, man. I mean, it's as you age, as you get older, it's almost becomes acceptable. But then you take a look at someone who almost looks or is what you consider invincible, and then you really start to see that they're not really invincible, and that hits you pretty hard. Like you said, whether it's at first with the intubation, and then it's like they took both legs, they took an arm, and you're like, holy cow, man! Like, dude, this guy was larger than life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you couldn't like fathom it. Like it was just you can't kill a god, like
that's like, it. Like this guy's immortal. Like he does not die. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so there's this tattoo that we got in our team, and it's a Spartan shield, and it's got some like nicks in it and like gashes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My buddy designed it, and it's really cool because I'm down here and I'm teaching MARSOC right now, and the team is 8211, and some of the dudes have that tattoo. And I noticed it was different than mine, and I looked at it, and they've added people to it. So they've added like nicks in the shield for more people that gone down in the team, and I think it's the saddest thing in the world that I got to go update this tattoo.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Yeah, I think one of the things that I know that I've tried to do myself with guys that I personally know who have died is, you never forget the sacrifices that were made and when they died in that event. And I think it's really important to kind of share that. And hopefully I hope more veterans really start to do that. Because we have another huge issue that is going on with our veteran community. And, it's ultimately the suicides that we see. And I hope that, folks are willing to get out there and talk about things more. I do really believe that people truly do care about these sacrifices, and I think they want to know about them. And I think getting out there and talk about them, and I think that can be quite therapeutic. The other thing that I would say that I've always tried to do, or I've more so recently, is think about the good times that I shared with that person. Not just necessarily the event where they ended up, maybe lost their life or were significantly severely wounded. Think about, training that we went through. And, one of the things I think you would recognize as well is one of the great things about the specialized training that we've been through, and what brings us together and creates that bond that you mentioned earlier, is the suck. And one of the key phrases, that runs within those small units and those specialized units is embrace the suck of life. And, what that really means is really enjoy that moment with the people you're with, because that's what I think, I look back on and, really kind of think about and how fun and, things like that you just, you enjoy and embrace that misery.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, mutual suffering brings people together like nothing else on the planet. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you've suffered together, you become more than kin,
That is the bond. And I think, what that does is that's probably about the only thing or the best thing that the military can do in a training situation is create the most miserable environments. Because, the people that are going through that, you can look at that and be like, you know what, if this person went through that and we went through it together, I can trust this guy with my life. And that's ultimately, kind of going forward, I think what really matters, downrange, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
But what type of things do you kind of think about, or like Memorial Day, like what does that mean to you, Tom?
Well, so like when I was a kid, the only thing I remember Memorial Day meaning was that the pool was open. Like I really don't remember anything else. I remember that's when our school would go to Idlewild, like that shitty theme park that is in PA. But like
yeah.
That was like what Memorial Day was all about. And then later on in my life, I remember looking back on it and being like, geez, I was way off on that. And
yeah,
I just the ignorance I had as a kid is just, I hope that nobody else has that, like don't wish people a happy Memorial Day and things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember when I was a kid, my dad was in the Marine Corps, and we went to this Memorial Day service at a cemetery. And I just remember thinking, like, dude, how much longer do I got to stand here? It's hot. This is so boring. I don't want to do this any longer. And like each year, I'm like, do we really have to do this again? And I think, similar to your experience, looking back, I'm like, I would stand there for days on end if it meant that we could bring more of these guys home alive. They could come home alive. I would sacrifice, whatever heat, whatever humidity, whatever I personally had to do if it meant that these guys would still be alive. And so, yeah. And it's just kind of crazy, like, as you have lived experiences, like how your mind set changes. But man, Tom, I really thank you for coming on, man. I really enjoyed, you telling your story about Eden and the guys that you were with. I really appreciate it. And I hope that, and I think our listeners will enjoy that as well. Is there anything else you want to share before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I don't think so, man.
All right. Well, man, thanks again. And, take care of old Chase out there training the puddle pirates. I
had to ask them what they wanted called. I was like, what are you guys? And they're like, we're coasties. I was like, you don't mind being called coasties? Like, that's what you want called? And they're like, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when Chase told me that he was training the Coast Guard, I'm like, doing CQB, I'm like, what exactly does the Coast Guard need to be doing training CQB? I mean, but yeah.
I love that job. It's so awesome.
Good deal, man. Good deal.
But honestly, that was one of the last conversations that I had it was the last conversation I had with Eden, was about being an instructor. And that's why I took an instructor billet. And I think that's why I've been chasing it ever since. But so I was throwing this huge hissy fit about having to train, because we had an entire Kandak. We didn't have like a battalion. We had a whole Kandak. It was thousands of people that we were supposed to train on Herat. And I was like, this is stupid. I have like 300 240 gunners that I'm trying to teach dis and ass to. Like, it's impossible. So Eden sits me down and he says to me, he's like, I know you're a good machine gunner. All right. Like, let's say that you're just an okay instructor. And I was like, all right, well, okay, we're starting this off on the wrong foot, but all right. He was like, let's say that you can train somebody to be half as good as you on a machine gun. And I was like, all right. He's like, well, if you train 200 people, what does that equate to on the battlefield? And I was like, whoa, it like blew my mind to think about it for the first time in that context. And I've been an instructor ever since, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you have people who not just necessarily are true leaders, but are able to kind of relate information and make you see, things that you just don't see. It's such a valuable thing. And it's one of the things that I think make true leaders, and maybe why some of the best leaders come out of the military, is because they put people in positions that they can see where they're going to excel. So. Yeah. All right, man.
Yeah, well, I guess I got to get back to the grind.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Tom.
Yeah, no problem, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Take care, okay?
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Owens Recovery Science Podcast. We'd like to conclude these special episodes with the playing of taps.